Now we are speaking budget because the budget matters and we want to know what it means to your pocket. With that, we are speaking with UWI graduate, agripreneur, founder of Y Farm, Alpha Senon. Good evening, sir, and we get right into it because you sent an open letter to the Prime Minister hoping that it falls on some fertile soil. So we want to start off with the importance of supporting thought-out plans that have started versus resources needed to brainstorm. Because if there are things that are on the ground already that are kind of working but need some more resources, do you support them getting the support or resources a little more than just starting from scratch?
Yeah, I mean, good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Definitely getting the resources is one thing, and what we do with it is another, of course, right? But it's starting from scratch. I would say we could start from scratch in some instances. In some instances, it doesn't have to start from scratch. But we shouldn't scratch off the scratch, right? Because where agricultural promotion and education is concerned, we have to start from scratch. And I talk about with young people and really start over the entire chain to get them going and growing, to end up growing our food, of course, eventually. But we must start from scratch where they are concerned. You know, I mean, we have been doing that work on the ground with Agriman, educating, entertaining, inspiring, motivating these young people. And it must have an important part of this entire process for agricultural education must be the promotion of agriculture to these young people. So I couldn't stress that enough. And that was my first point to Dr. Keith Rowley in my open letter, public letter to him.
And I like the fact that you speak of Agriman and promoting, because we just started a clip and I guess we'll run a little more of it where there is a skit where there's a problem, people pray their larceny is happening, and we have somebody calling Agriman and Agriman coming to the rescue, because right now if it's not Marvel, it's DC. If it's not DC, it's some graphic novel. And people are just kind of inculcating the ideas and bringing people in through cartoons in one sphere. So is that needed, or what is needed to make agriculture cool? I remember you talking about agriculture and just kind of literally cultivating the next cohort.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the whole aspect of making agriculture cool is the marketing of it. You know, I feel like if we have sort of missed the boat when it comes to the rebranding of agriculture, but it must start in the minds of the young people, right? And associating it to cool things that they like to associate themselves with, and bringing in nice and easy the agriculture inside of it, you know? So a simple thing, you know, today we had a prize giving ceremony in Sandy Grande we ran a competition on drawing your model farm in Sandy Grande. Drawing that farm, an art competition for children, drawing a farm that you want to see in your community, right? So we had some amazing entries, and you know, and then the farm that the person that won, we are going to bring that farm to life. We literally going to develop that farm. I was in partnership with the Sandy Grande Corporation and the lead pack in Sandy Grande, you know. So it's about rebranding that what they may know or may not have known, you know, explaining the process of agriculture along the value chain, of course, and then thinking about the skill sets that young people have, the mechanics that they like to do, the engineering, the plumbing, and using those things to show them how they could actually fit into agriculture. Because what is hydroponics? Hydroponics is plumbing, you know, using the PVC pipes to grow. That is plumbing, basically, you know. I mean, all the machineries and whatnot that farmers need to use and these develop to, you know, the cassava digger and the yam digger. That is mechanics. That is playing with metal, you know, and steel and stuff. So it's using those things to be able to, so young people isn't like it's something strange to them, but it's using their skills, their talents that they already have, and train them now to show how they can actually use that for better food security.
And in that training process, in that building of capacity, how are you making, or how do you suggest that that link be made? Because you said literally that's plumbing, but that at the same time, there's a big part of that in agriculture. And also looking at the climate, how it is, the practices that we are using, whether or not they're sustainable, what can be in, like, Granny used to plant this way. Does that mean I need to plant this way? Do we use technology? Or are there some practices, that indigenous practices, that just make sense here? Because I might be looking at a model and saying, okay, well, these people planting this way, but at the same time, there's a lot of land that they planting on with machines, but they're doing it flat. Whereas where I have my area to plant is on a hill, or there's some other location or factor that makes it different. So I need to do what has been done already. How do you respond to that?
I mean, you know, the first thing is awareness. So if they're not aware, you know, if they're not conscious about the fact that, wait now, as a plumber, you know, I could really probably use my plumbing skills to build a hydroponic system. I don't have to do it like everybody. I could do it for the slope of my land. I could do it going up. I could do it horizontal. However, right, you may not be able to afford going and buy these hydroponic systems from the hydroponic suppliers, right? So it must be that awareness. And I think that's what YFAM brings to the table, and also showing them that there's a need. You know, there's a need for so much innovation in agriculture. It's endless, you know. Like, I mean, look the other day we had to harvest some sweet potato, right? And it was so tedious using these forks, and sometimes with the fork, you dig in the sweet potato. You know, what about inventing a tool? You know, using your mechanic skills then, right? And your building skills, and finding a way to harvest the sweet potato without harming it. You know, different people might have different techniques, but I'm just saying, as young people, we have the right and the freedom to innovate with these things. So, you know, awareness, make them conscious, and of course, make them know what are the problems, so that they will take it from a purposeful perspective. And of course, you can't beat farmer to farmer training, you know, because there's something called the Farmers Field School, where a group of farmers go on a farm, and a person who have expertise in a matter, you know, they would kind of train the other farmers about that, you know. And of course, generally speaking too now, for the young people to really be able to identify that these skill sets that they have they could use is the study of agripreneurship, agricultural entrepreneurship. And just as with anything else, entrepreneurship is seeing a need, you know, and using the lack of resources that we have. And sometimes we say lack of resources, and we are really lacking resources. You know, we have skills, we have our hands, we have different things that we just naturally talented in, and we can now use that now to be able to fix them. And that is agripreneurship, and that problem that may be existing, not necessarily on the farm, it could be in the processing facility, it could be the packaging, you know, it could be so much things that I like to say, from the entire process, from the seed to the snack, the plant to the pack, the crop to the shop, that entire chain that exists. Young people must identify opportunities that exist within this chain.
And I want to talk about that chain a little bit, because, and we're going back to sweet potato. So yes, the sweet potato has been harvested, but not how much people go and buy how much sweet potato. And you find yourself, if you have a glut, you have sweet potato to stone dog, as we would say sometimes. So how do we take it from that initial product? We just dig it out of the earth, we wash off some of the soil or the dirt, to something that is higher on that value chain. And with that, I have agro-processing in mind, because sometimes it's almost as though it's feast or famine. And we just saw the opening of the agro-processing park in Moruga, and we show some images of that, and it looked pretty. But a start is one thing. How it is we're moving forward? What was the best way you think we should?
We must make agro-processing that new thing that everybody doing, you know. Everybody taking, well, not everybody taking one sweet potato, you know. You'll have a glut again with people doing, everybody wants to do sweet potato fries or whatever, or sweet potato chips, you know. I mean, sweet potato, there's so many, of course, opportunities that exist, right? But we must allow for agro-processing to become this new thing that people get into, whether it's dry products, frozen products, cut-up products, you know, blended products, peel products, you name it. It's all about adding value along the value chain. But again, education must become an integral part of this. You know, it goes back to me always arguing, and when I go on some of the shelves in Trinidad here, and I see mango from Thailand, mango from Philippines in a pack on a shelf in Trinidad and Tobago. You could tell me mango fly that's fed up with mango in Trinidad. I mean, why? It's because we not agro-processing the mango, you know, and so much people, you know, could want to have mango to eat year round in different forms, of course, because the mango wouldn't stay fresh as is. So we're talking about cut up mango, frozen mango, I mean, sauteed mango, you name it, whatever you want to do, mango punch, mango this, mango that, but dry mango, right? Dry mango seasoned with some shadow benny and like a dry chow in a pack. where our local products with these things, you know.
But
But
asking for
again,
those things, with that in mind, we take a break. When we come back, we're going to get some recommendations for you. I don't know if you recommended it to the Prime Minister or just the country at large, because sometimes people say it's government work and other people say no, it's private people work. But we'll talk about that when we return. Stay with us. We are speaking with Alpha Senon. Welcome back. It is Budget Matters, the agriculture edition, speaking with Alpha Senon. And Alpha, in terms of the budget, what are some of the allocations that you're hoping to see hard and fast in black and white?
right away, I want to see more investment in young agripreneurs across the country. I want to see real investment. I want to see investment on paper, and then when in time to actually get it, yes, it's so difficult to get. It's almost like if it's their return, and they know that if it's a pie, they know that 90% of the pie cannot get it or will not get it, right? So we want to see real investment, and of course, into projects as well that is sustainable, not just projects that, you know, one man just get rich. No, projects that in community, you know, it's employment, training, building capacity, etc., etc. You know, sustainable projects. Secondly, investments into community food parks as well too, and of course, which will be tied to the agro-processing, right? But very important as well too. We must re-engineer the minds of our farmers as well as our general population to understand indigenous techniques. And you mentioned it previously there when we were chatting, you know, thinking about indigenous techniques. I like to say IT meets IT, indigenous techniques meets information technology, because yes, we live in that age now, but we cannot forget all what our forefathers taught us about the land preparation. You know, how do you use organic and natural ways to grow in your food? These things must become culture. These things must, again, I would say, become culture once again, because it was previously. And, you know, when the oil took over the soil, you know, we forget all that. But of course, we have to say again now, the soil is the new oil and the grass is the new gas. I can't say that enough, right? And, you know, agro-processing must be our new petrotrain. You know, that is my mantra right now.
And one of the things that, and it would be remiss of me, because every time I see it, sometimes I talk about it, sometimes I don't. You see, you even have the agri-man behind you and just pushing that head all the time in different ways. And Susu and different types of partnerships, some people giving a bad name because they're calling it different things. But what kind of partnerships can be done if you don't get all the money you want? And I say that looking at a video that you all would have put out in terms of the grow box or the starter kits, where you have the pallet making the grow boxes, the soil that you'd be using to plant, and also the seedlings. So what other kind of partnerships are you looking at, synergies, so that we can move this thing forward? Because I doubt you will ever get the amount of money you want, but sometimes it's not money you want. So what kind of partnerships can we use to mitigate those things?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, for example, right now is that we teamed up with the Steel Workers Union of Trinidad and Tobago to start to think about how could we start building machinery, right, out of steel and machines out of steel to further and advance agriculture. You know, a lot of the machines, if not all, these things don't build in Trinidad. These things coming from Germany and China and whatnot. You know, like if we don't have the ability to do it, but I think we do have the ability. So I think, you know, looking into some of the industries that is out of agriculture is where we have to start to look, you know, that diversification. I mean, even the Prime Minister said it as well too when they were swearing in the ministers and whatnot, that, you know, we're not just trying to talk about agriculture investment into from the normal cliche diversification, but real diversification, creating real new cutting edge industries that could really raise the GDP, you know, in terms of agriculture contribution and whatnot, right? So thinking about the steel industry, thinking about the metal industry, I mean, some of these industries might close down and whatnot, or close down already, but still, how could agriculture be that new thing that revises and revamps these industries, you know? So like here with the grow boxes, we call it plant your plate starter kit. You get your grow box, you get your soil, you get your plants, you know. And collaboration now could really help us to really to move this further, where we could produce these grow boxes. I mean, I don't know, 1,000 pieces a day, because families all around Trinidad need them to grow their seasoning and to grow the lettuce and patchouli, and just rekindle that healthy eating aspect as well in their homes now, you know. So very, very important is that collaboration amongst other entities who may have resources. As you say, sometimes it's not always money. Sometimes it's about the capacity. Sometimes it's a simple machine. For example, we do in compost, right? What about if we could get someone in the industry to build a compost machine for us? I traveled to India and I saw these things there. Of course, very expensive to buy it and bring it to Trinidad. So how about if we get compost machine? These things will create, you know, good biofertilizers that can then bring down the price of food, because farmers don't have to spend this expensive money on all these chemicals. Some of them actually banned, by the way, in other parts of the world, right? Biochemicals, biofertilizers, sorry, to be able to grow their food. So these are some of the collabs that we're talking about.
You speak about dealing with the steel workers, and I find that interesting, because we started off saying that we graduate, and I'm thinking Professor Brian Copeland and the work that was done with the GPAN, or with the PAN, and looking at how we can take that functional knowledge and apply it, because sometimes some knowledge kind of remains in books. During the pandemic, UWI again was working on creating or getting open source plans and creating some of the personal protective equipment. And I remember one time I was looking at designs for mills, and there's a mill that if you can use it to make flours, but you can also use it to make butters. Like, you'd roast a seed and you'd be able to do that. And I'm just thinking of some of the possibilities that we're able to do, because we have the UE graduates. You can't tell us that we're not bright enough. So how it is we're making those links to say, okay, we're taking that knowledge from the head and working it out so that we can go from the seed to the snack.
Yeah, we need to have a critical assessment done on what are some of the things missing for our industry. A critical assessment. Using academia, but not academia alone. Sometimes we go off on this academic tangent and we forget the technocrats and the real stakeholders on the ground, right? So if we pull together a stakeholder meeting, and let's take one commodity, for example, and let's see what's missing along the seed to the snack value chain. And we go through this. And you know, when they talk about input supplies, I know for sure machinery going and come up. And I'm not talking about, well, that machinery there, we could buy that by whoever store. Yeah, but where this coming from? This coming from somewhere in the world, and it's very expensive, right? So we look at that and we continue further along the chain and say, this is missing, that is missing. Let's use the engineering department. All these students are doing all these projects, nice projects every year. But again, where is it? It's on the shelf. And I know this because I have worked with plenty of them. And let's find a real and tangible way of creating whatever that product may be and implementing it and having a model demonstration park that showcases, look this working, and let's scale it up. Let's get Mr. Government, you know, to give us a nice budget to be able to scale this up. And make it a model for communities. And
we'll need to scale this conversation up again or keep it consistent, but we want to thank you for being a part of it for this installation of Budget Matters, and hopefully we get to speak again in short order. But on behalf of the entire news team, I'm DK Rosta. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night.